sound check here. If everything's good, should be looking good. So welcome back to another week. We are again checking today my training. We are going into the last training block, what we did. Everything from Ironman 70.3 and Ironman training, some specific sessions, some key sessions, some things are changed. And yeah, let's go right into it, I would say. If you have any kind of questions, as always, you can always check in and do that. And yeah, I would say we go right in. Okie doke. So, should be alright. Okay, let's have a look. So, training, quickly gotta log in. Overall, it's been a good week, challenging week, which is kind of what you want. But yeah, some ups and downs, what you would expect. But let's have a look here, what's going on. Where did it start? Day one. As you guys know, most of you, I'll do a 10-day training block. So I do 7 days of load, 1 day completely off, day 8 and day 9 and 10. Today is day 10, is aerobic training, easy aerobic training, maximum zone 2 type of stuff, but nothing more. I added a bit more volume for those type of sessions, but otherwise nothing bad. Let's have a look. Here, day one of the training block, it started with, some of you guys saw on Instagram as well, I shared quite a lot of data there for the treadmill session and the bike session. I did it, participated in the study of my wife, and also, yeah, talked to then the lead physiologist there, which he will also help me with regards to, yeah, when I have questions specific to that and testing as well in the future. He has a very high level and good understanding of it and researching some new stuff as well, which is interesting. So he thinks outside the box, right? So the Monday here, there I did, where is it? That one. Yeah, exactly. So I had to change a bit the Monday around because of this run test. This took quite a while, the study thing. So day one, I had the swim here, 3K swim, the run test and gym. Then was the aerobic session. Day two was a 5.5K swim in the morning with the 5x5 minute threshold. I also did the last video about that one. That was an interesting one. 318 also wrote here, always noted. 318 to 320 pace. Last one, 322. Legs good, so really one of the main things I also found out through the physiology testing I did there, not just basic one with lactate, it went a bit deeper, also a new way to kind of measure your cardiac output on your stroke volume of your heart. So there we kind of found actually that was my main limiter. First we thought, for example, on the bike, as I said before that many years of aerobic training mainly, nothing above threshold much at all, if threshold work at all. So if you do that over time, it just makes you a bit weak. And so you need, I had kind of a flat profile, right? So you could see it in the bike test as well, compared to the run test, for example. The run test was kind of raising the VO2, and then you kind of have a plateau, and you normally stay a bit in the plateau before you then exhaust yourself. On the bike, it was kind of like ramp, and it was still rising the VO2, barely going to a plateau, and I was already like, the legs just went out. It was like 1 or 2 minutes I could stay in this level, and then it was basically over with, which is kind of explainable as well when you think about it. You are good at what you train, so if you train always a lot of high-end stuff, you become good at that. If you don't, you will not be good at that. Whoopa. Of course, data. Once a week, my main session, I have 2 main sessions in a run. One is the threshold, 5x5 minutes. With 2 minutes easy jogging, that I do at threshold pace, which is going to be around the 320 mark. Then in the evening here, I did the other one from the bike, the other key session, which is funnily also 5x5 minutes, between 400 and 450 watts. I did them though because it's something I really struggle with. That's why I do it. I'm really bad at it. but I mainly text on a cardio perspective. I can really tell like this is something new to get the heart rate in those ranges, which is awesome. It's new stuff. So I did them at like 380, 390 watts. After this day anyways, after the run. I had to change a bit around that stuff. Otherwise I would structure differently. I wouldn't have the run and the bike on the same day. But because of this run test and the way things shaped out, I had to do it like this. I had to kind of choose. And what I had to choose was also on those days, I had to kick out the quality swim and a longer aerobic swim. But for example, if you look at this day, I couldn't do 3 high-end sessions, right? I couldn't do also a big swim with let's say, high-end stuff, threshold run, and that's just dumb, right? 2 quality sessions a day is already pretty challenging. So then the day after was easier. So 4,800 meter aerobic swim. It was just like longer stuff, 800, 600. 90-minute aerobic ride, and then so a bit lower. That is a bit easier day per se, so you charge up also in calories. And then we went into the big one here, which was, oh my god, what is this? We went into the big one, which was 4.5 hour ride with 5 times 30 minutes. You saw it in the last video as well. 300 watts. We can analyze a little bit, have a look here if you want at the data. So first 30-minute, 308 watts, 2.7% heart rate drift, so not too much. That was a challenging session though. That was really hard because I had just 2 days before this bike and run, which again, normally I wouldn't plan like that, but because of this study and testing I did, I had to. So I had quite a bit of soreness and fatigue still in the body, especially like kind of just, the body was still worked. It's day 2, as you know how muscle ache works and stuff. So, but I got through it. But, and again here 303 watts. And the last rep, 307 watts. No, this was the last rep here. So, 2% heart rate drift, so very little, which is a good sign. But muscular-wise, mainly I was pretty worked. Then I ran off that 1 hour at Ironman pace. Then the next day was interesting. There I had to make a call, and I analyzed it. At that moment, it was the right decision. But 2 days after, I knew, I kind of learned, but only because I have a pretty good understanding of my body and kind of because of learning from physio and what is what. I can explain what happened. I had this long run session plan, like a 30K run with some quality in there and like building and stuff. And I did it outside for the first time. After 90 minutes, was it this one? No, that was the day after here, sorry, this one here. So it was a progressive run planned, 2.5 hours was planned, but I had to stop after 90 minutes because after 1 hour 20, which I thought was my right calf, which I tell you now, and that's something for you to learn as well, because it's something it took me years to understand. I thought it was my right calf. So it tightened up in a way. There was a little bit muscle pain, not tendon, but like in a way. Then I stopped, massaged a bit, stretched it, and like just loosened it. Thought, okay, maybe I can finish. But I stopped after 90 minutes. Thought, no, it's not smart. I'm not running with any pain. And objectively, you could kind of say, okay, it's explainable, right? I had this uphill run test, I had the threshold run, I had this run off the bike. You could say, okay, maybe the muscles are just beloaded in a way, and I was outside, and you could say that, and that's what I thought. But what was actually the case was because a day later I had this high-end swim here with 4 times 400. There's a main set, it's like a Frodeno set from back then, 4 times 400, 4 times 200, 4 times 100. So like threshold work, kind of really around there. And there I already noticed my low back was really stiff, like in a not nice way. And I noticed it wasn't really clean swimming. I could tell it wasn't good. And then I also had a cramp in the hamstring, and I knew it wasn't dehydration or any of that stuff. So I knew, okay, low back is the issue. So I went, luckily on the same day, to the chiropractor. I go normally every 4 to 6 weeks just to loosen any kind of joint things. Things will build up. It's normal if you run indoors all the time. If you just run like pelvis, things will get out of alignment, which normally are not an issue. But if some areas block, for example, what blocked is the L1 vertebrae. It's kind of like in the middle of your back. It doesn't matter, you don't have to understand it. But what that does, it's linked to the hip quad area. And they were also super sore and tight, which again, I did a lot of stuff. It's like, okay, maybe it's an issue. We had to even dry needle it, like the technique my wife uses. It's like from physio to loosen it, and that helped. But also the calves were also super tight, and we also had to dry needle them. That's for me not normal. Like, I rarely often have this. And I should have at that moment realized, okay, it's actually from the back and not this orthopedic thing. But when you're in it, you don't always understand these things. But then after I went to the chiro, and it was exactly that. And I even asked him, also for you to learn from that, I asked him, my prognosis was 50%, and he also said it. I asked him, how many people do you think that have Achilles issues, or like Achilles tendon, all these Achilles things, calves, how many of them do you think, I didn't say what I thought, how many of them do you think are from the low back actually, like a blocked vertebrae? And what happens then, when, like for example, the L5, the lowest one, really low on the back, is pretty common when you're sitting, it just gets blocked, and aero position anyways, it's going to be death for your back, right? On shoulders as well, like this, it's no bueno. Easily blocks, and we're sitting on a couch, and it just blocks, right? And if that one's blocked, and that is blocked with a nervous system to the calf area, right? And what that happens is, depending when it's blocked, mostly it kind of overstimulates the nerve a little bit, just a little bit, that the muscle tension is like insane high. And if you, of course, keep that up, you think it's from running, but it actually isn't. It starts up there, but maybe you keep running and you go massage, doesn't get better because it's not the origin, it's not from the muscle, it's from the nerve, from the top that overstimulates the muscle. And that's what I had. We deblocked it, bum bum, those two, all calf, quads, like butter, like super soft, like, yeah, those things. So what I learned from that is I should have gone to chiro in this specific phase more frequent, which I now will do. I will go every 2 weeks, just with hard training and running, just small blockages will build up. There will be a learning from that, and then I could have finished the run without issue. So if you got calf issues, if you got knee issues, go to a chiro, have a good one to check. Physios, most of them unfortunately don't know or don't think about it first, because the patient comes with, let's say, calf or Achilles issue, and many jump on it, or the doctor as well. They're going to jump on it and say, oh my God, let's look here. There's a tendon, there's a bone. But, like, it's not that. But yeah, he also said the chiro, 50% of the low back issues, of Achilles issues that he sees is also starting at the low back. And I would say from my physio experience with patients, it's the same. It's ridiculously much. And people think, oh, my calf, and it's the shoes and all those things. I train too hard. Yeah, make sure your back is fine. So low back mobility and all that stuff is gold. So that was a big learning for me. So the swim, the high-end swim, which again didn't feel too good in terms of biomechanics, breathing-wise good. And energy in general, super good through the whole block. Then an aerobic run here, just like, yeah, 4:30 pace, 35 minutes. And then was a bigger one in the evening, 4 times 10 minutes threshold, 350, 360 watts. It's the first time I do something like that. Also from threshold was anyways planned for the race specific phase. It's a good time to do this on the bike and run. Yeah, kind of the 10-minute marker also came from this physiologist to kind of elongate it, because cardiac output and VO2 max is kind of my issue, especially like the stroke volume, cardiac output. We know I have to get this as I wrote it on Instagram if you want to see the details about it. If you're a numbers guy, I wrote about it. Anyways, I have to get it to 5.9 liters, and there's like 31 liters stroke volume, I believe, 5.9. And when it's at that, then my LT1, my aerobic threshold, will be at 350 watts. So basically Ironman pace, maybe a bit more. And that will be then 4.1 watts per kilogram. If I stay at 85, right now I'm 86 kilos. So in a month or maybe 2, then I'm going to be 85, just naturally. But I think anything under 85 for me is probably unhealthy. It's just this high muscle mass that I have. Of course, I'm aware of like protein intake, so I'm not going too crazy on that. But also you can't go too low either. But yeah, fat. I have 10% body fat right now. It's not that. That's not where the weight comes from per se. It's more the muscle mass. But some things you can change, some things you can't. What's important is that I perform and stay healthy. So that was a big one. 4 times 10-minute threshold. That was the easy day. That was an off day. I did some mobility there. And this full off day, that's why a lot of athletes don't like it. It's a bit tricky because It's basically coming off, I mean, I have never taken drugs, but I assume it's somewhere in the same category. You're basically coming off this huge hormone things for a couple of days, and this one off day, you actually still feel good. But the day after that off day, when you basically didn't have any kind of hormones through training, we don't feel so good. So although I still trained and all that, we still did an hour easy run, 3K easy swim, and a bit of gym, but you're not feeling well. Mainly from a hormone perspective, but I think, and fatigue. So I also slept long. I slept like until I woke up 10, 11 hours twice, really gold. Really did a lot, I could tell. But it's weird, like even you don't want to feel like that. But I think it's healthy for the body, to be honest, because you can see with the data, for example, resting heart rate and dropping, HRV is going through the roof. Today, again, the first day was getting a little bit, but the second day, that's why I have like this rhythm. Today, the day 10 of the training block is the last easy recovery day. But as you see, I still did 2 hour 15 easy bike, but zone 1, a 3K swim, and a 45-minute run. So it's easy aerobic volume, maximum zone 2. But yeah, hormonally, it's interesting. It's a trip, but I think if you constantly stay in this hype, you're probably earlier or later, your body is going to stop you. So I believe this off day thing is really good, but I'm for sure going to keep it because now I feel like immune system wise, which was my issue, I have no issues whatsoever and generally very consistent and good. So I'm not going to change anything now. But like the question is down the line, let's say in 6 months, is it still a good idea to do this rhythm like that? Because of course, if you do 7 days, you train a bit more, but like it's a fine line, right? I have to see down the line how it is. But for now, it's a good system. It works. I can get the quality in that I want and the volume. Yep. So tomorrow we got a big set. So 8 times 50, 32 seconds, leaving on 1 minute into 5 times 400 threshold, juicy, and then 8 times 50 again with speed. So that's a juicy one. And then again, aerobic run. Then the quality block starts again. And then 5 times 5 minutes on a bike again with the VO2 max kind of stuff. Threshold, so then it repeats. Yep, so that's basically that. Last week's stats, I did 22 hours of training and yeah, a little bit less than planned, but because of those things, but good. It's gonna build a little bit over next week, so 22 hours, 24, then 26, 50. But yeah, I have those off days in there, so this 10-day rhythm that changes everything a bit. But yeah, that's that in terms of questions. Any questions? Here, Vikram asked, I was wondering if you had any tips on getting used to aero on the road. I'm comfy on the indoor trainer, but struggle with balance when I'm outside. Also, any tips on flying mount? Wouldn't say I'm a super specialist on that I'm like an ITU guy that is like, but the easiest answer is probably practice. Getting aero on the road, that's a good one. I'm, to be honest, I think the weather looks like that. I'm not going to be able to ride outside before I go to Oceanside. I just booked the flights today, so Oceanside, when I'm there the week before, I'm going to be riding a lot outside, so I can't hear. But any tips on getting aero outside on the road? I mean, if you have a good setup and a good bike position and practice that indoors, especially like one thing is really, that's one exercise I do, is kind of like this shrug, because when you can see it from the camera, if I'm like this, it's hard to, from here you don't see it as well, but anyways, shoulders widen a lot, or like to make yourself small in order to hold that for long outside. I think the training starts already indoors, so you can do like small intervals like that. It's also what my bike fitter said, like, hey, do 5 minutes of holding it because shoulders will get tight and stuff. But you got to make sure you open those shoulders up again, because your swim is going to go backwards real quick if you swim with those shoulders. So you need to open a lot of mobility work. So if you're a good time trialist, that's why I think one relation is people who are really good cyclists and time trialists, they're sometimes really bad swimmers. And if you don't do a lot of mobility work, you're going to bring this position in the water, in the pool, and no way you're going to swim well if you're like that. So flying mount, I'm not sure if it's even necessary, right? You see, even the fastest kind of world, they don't do much flying mount. They just kind of climb on. For ITU, no doubt, but for half and full Ironman, when you look at the transitions of the guys, I mean, they're just stepping on, one foot in, another one. I mean, you kind of take the rubber bands around the heel, right? That's a classic one. So you kind of fix the pedals like that. That's what I do. Otherwise, I would do that actually, because if you don't do that, because you have carbon shoes, but sometimes some people don't tighten them with rubber bands on the frame, the shoes, that they stay like that when you push the bike. Some people really take a dive forward and fall, because sometimes when you're unlucky, the shoe flips around. First of all, you're flipping around the carbon on the floor, which is not exactly good for the shoe. But the second one is sometimes you hit it in a bad angle, it can actually block, and then you go head forward with the bike. So yeah, that's that. I think the only way to get good at anything is practice. So if you want to be good at flying mount, you need to practice that. But is it worth it? I'm not sure, because like I said, even the leading pros in 70.3 and Ironman seem to not do that. Some people just climb on and they're like 2 seconds behind. So probably not the one to make massive gains, I would say. Then you asked here, can you do something about this lower back thing regarding the Achilles at home? Any exercise you can do? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do a lot. The biggest one I found for low back and for triathletes and cyclists and all those, so all kind of muscle groups from here down, they tighten up. But the big one is obviously quads. So the quads, the front of the thigh, that one has to be in a way that you're, for example, you're kneeling, you're doing a quad stretch, like with one knee against the wall. Anyways, you have to be able to touch the heel on your butt. That kind of, so full flexion of the knee, fully bent knee, and that your pelvis doesn't feel like it's rotated like hell forward. You're basically arching it back, which is compensating. So it has to be that your pelvis is nice and neutral and your heel is on the butt, and you get the knee a little bit back, then you know you have good range. If you don't have that, it's probably crazy tight, which most people will have. So if you never stretch like that or don't have the range for that, it will probably take you 2-3 weeks of regular stretching even to get to normal range of motion. So the quads is an important one. The other one is the hips. I said in the last video, so the kind of this rotation out, super important for swimming as well, to get the extension. So like to be able to have the legs floating behind and not dragging behind, because if you have this low back pelvis thing, for me personally, it's impossible to swim well. So I'm sure for a lot of people as well, because it kind of does something weird to your back that you kind of drag the legs no matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you think about the front and all that. Like, you will not be nice aligned in the water with a cycling or like desk position, because the angle is basically still on your hips, although you're standing straight, but the pelvis is rotated, twisted in a way that is like almost impossible to swim well, I would say. I noticed it. Like I said, I had it and I swam like 5 seconds slower per 100. Couldn't hack it. Breathing wasn't the issue, but swam horrible. So, but I knew what it was. So then I went on the same day. Boom, next day, swim was amazing again. So, yeah. If you have Achilles issues, knee issues, anything like that, I would say chiropractor is a very good address to check to. Lots of low back exercises out there. Just have a Google around on YouTube. As long as you have variation in your training and have like a mix of things, I think it's going to be good. How are you doing? I'm good, Sebastian. Thanks for asking. I'm a bit tired. Any thoughts on how to find the optimal amount of carbs during the Ironman run? How should I test during training? Again, wouldn't say I'm a specialist on that. I mean, yes, I've done 14 Ironmans, but only in recent years it came kind of this higher carb range. I'm going to just say how I do it for my upcoming Ironman. For example, on the bike, it's safer, I would say, to go on higher carbs. But even saying right away, go to 140 grams without having an Ironman at 120 grams, without having done an Ironman at 120 grams, is a bit risky. So I would say, that's my thinking right now. I'm going to start with 120 grams on the bike. Even if I could take 140 right now, I'm going to start with 120, have a baseline of testing, right? 120 grams on the bike. It's kind of safer when you think about it gut-wise, because you're static, right? So most people get issues not on the bike with the gut, because on the run, because then you're starting to shake it up. And you already took this sport product for five whatever hours or more. So then it's a good test if that product works at all. So on the bike, I would say because what you take on the bike influences what you take on the run, right? If you go crazy on the bike with carbs, the intake on the run is going to change as well a little bit if the product is not as good as you thought in an Ironman situation, with the swim, with maybe salt water, with stress, and then so I think real training wise, it's difficult to practice. I mean, I have those, like I said, I did those long sessions. I do a 4.5 hour bike. In that session, I do 120 grams per hour, and now I start at 80 grams as a baseline per hour. So first I want to do an Ironman with 120 grams on the bike and 80 grams on the run. I know there's a lot of pros right now that even do 120 on the run, but I train for that, right? So I would say do it step by step. Whatever you did last time, I know I can do it with 60, 70 grams, no issue, but I also decided in the run itself. So let's say I do now in Ironman Texas, 120 grams of carbs per hour on the bike, plus the needed liquid and sodium, as I explained a gazillion times before in interviews, but it's important. Let's say I do that, and then I run the marathon with 80 grams of carbs per hour. Let's say I come to kilometer 30, I feel energy is good, I feel like the gut is really happy, no issue whatsoever. Instead of stuffing more gels, I think I'll be more prone to go to Coke, because Coca-Cola, as most of us know, it's a super, there's something in there that's basically killing all the, I don't know, you can always drink Coke, as you know, that's why people drink it in races. So I'll probably fuel up on a bit more Coke because of the caffeine, first of all, but also because it's extra carbs. So I'm going to make the decision in the race. So that's the answer for that. But yeah, once I did an Ironman at 120 grams and 80 grams on the run, how did I perform? Was energy an issue? Yes, no. If the pacing was good, because it should be, in theory, the math should be good that I perform, but training is one thing and doing an Ironman is another one. So if I perform well, okay, next time maybe I can do 130 grams on the bike and maybe 90 or maybe 100 on the run, who knows. But yeah, it takes practice. I'm going to be racing 3 Ironmans this year, so each of them will bring learnings and I can share them with you, of course. Alex asked, what races are you doing this year? I can even tell you the whole calendar almost. So first I'll be racing, I just booked the flights. 2nd of April, I'll be flying out to Oceanside, LAX, and then from there, a car drive to Oceanside. So 6th of April is 70.3 Oceanside, the first race of the Ironman Pro Series. Just a good first takeout, first race of the season, see how training has been going, and having a race in before my first Ironman, that's important. And then 27th of April, so three weeks-ish later, I do Ironman Texas, which is also the second race of the Ironman Pro Series. Those I do, and then I'm also pretty certain already that I will do Ironman Vitoria-Gasteiz, so the Spain one, also Ironman Series in July, because otherwise there's not much going around in Europe. I don't want to do an overseas one again, first because of financial, but also secondly, I don't want to have this time travel. There's another one in Australia, for example, which would be nice to do, but like, let's say, because the goal is still to qualify for Kona. If I manage that, I don't know, I'm going to do my absolute best, but only the fairy knows. But I'm going to do my best to qualify for Kona. So is it smart to have a Texas race, have another one Australia, and then again one? So for training is obviously not optimal. Even the travel to Australia is going to kill you without even racing there. So Spain is another one. That's mid-July, 14th July-ish. Going to be racing that, and probably 2 weeks before also 70.3, forgot the one, I think in France, 2-3 weeks before, 70.3, also from the Pro Series. Yep, so those are for sure locked in. Maybe some local ones in Finland, I would love to, just race more in general. That was a big learning from last year. It was just, I mean, last year many things were going wrong, but I want to race, you know. I want to be racing and having fun, loving the sport, and so those things. Then I hopefully qualify for Kona, and then I have to think about the rest. Then I'll just do Kona. But yeah, maybe a 70.3 before, but step by step, those things are not necessarily in my control. Just in my control is my training, my process, the things I share with you right now, doing the best decisions today and tomorrow, and even in 4 weeks, it doesn't exist. So I don't like to think about like, in 4 weeks, Oceanside. Some people ask me, are you excited about Oceanside? It's like, it's 4 weeks away. Do you know what can happen in 4 weeks? Like, for example, I went running a week ago it was, and I took this, just small decisions can easily completely, it's over, right? I took a turn and I went outside and it was this little, a bit more icy. I still had spikes, so I thought, I'm good, I have spikes, right? It was a bit icy, but was a pure ice and was like an angle. Boom, I full on went sideways. I was nicely sore in the neck, but you can easily break your wrist like that, or like have a bad ankle twist, or like hit whatever. Like it can be over like that. You don't know what happens tomorrow, right? It could be hitting my bus or whatever. So like I really don't like to live in the future. Like I have my goals, I have those things I work towards, sure, but like I don't take anything for granted. Like you don't know what happens tomorrow. So I just think about today, my training, what happens, and doing the best in recovery and all those things, and also balancing this whole journey as good as I can, which is obviously challenging to balance all this. It's not easy, I can tell you that. But here, Luis, I hope I said the name right. How do you feel about recovery days after a week or two heavy workload? Do you think it's better to take an active recovery day? So as a full working, that's what I also do with my athletes that I coach. I think it's a good system, but it's individual. So I think whatever works for you best. Some people even like to do 7 days, is easier for them. But I think if you're, just think about it, what it does for your body, right? Most people don't like to take off days, but again, we know consistency is king. So how you train for 6 months, 12 months matters, not how you crank out the next 6 weeks, some hero workouts. Nobody cares about that. Your body certainly doesn't, because real aerobic strength and engine and performance comes only through like 6 months straight. Anything under that is kind of like, it's nothing, right? So not nothing, but it's not true performance. So whatever you got to do to keep that thing, that system going, that you stay consistent over time, that you can maintain it also mentally, next to work, next to family. So what I do, for example, with some of my athletes is that I do 3 weeks on and 1 week off. In that off week, for example, will be 2 full rest days, and whatever you got to do in that week to really reset, do social things, plan things in. And if you have to skip training, don't think about it twice, just skip it, doesn't matter. Like training, really low priority. Also mentally, it's important. You need to have a freshen up that you like, because it is hard, right? 3 sports next to work and family, it's pretty damn challenging. So we sometimes forget because we all do it, but it's very challenging. So you can find whatever rhythm basically, that's what I also learned about training. Whatever rhythm you can maintain consistently, and very important, don't do my mistake that you only stay in one training zone, and you have variety in training. So sometimes you go hard and fast for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, sometimes for 5 minutes. And of course, 80% at least is like aerobic, so zone 1, zone 2. If you train less, train zone 2. Don't spend too much in zone 1. You don't get so much for it. If you train 10 hours a week, I would say use zone 2. It's also pretty common knowledge, I think. But whatever you got to do to stay consistent. So if you got to train 2 weeks in 1 week easy aerobic volume, do that. If you feel you can do 3, but take a full rest day. Yeah, I would say for sure would work. 1 full rest day a week, just a full reset. Although you don't want to sometimes, or most times probably, but it's so good for you. Just think about it, for your body. You almost get 48 hours for the immune system, for the muscles, even mentally as well. You can do something, you can meet your friends to cinema or do something completely else. Don't think about the sport. I think in so many levels, it's really, really healthy for you. So, and sometimes you don't know, like I said, even now I'm getting a bit spoiled. I'm like consistent and all. You're already starting to think, maybe you can do a bit more and those things. So like you easily take things for granted, right? So if things are going well, you easily get, I could do more and I'm the same, right? So that's why you have to stay objective and make long-term decisions. So whatever system works for you right now, that you're like, I can maintain this is good for me. I do a variety of training. I go easy, but I also go in each sport, or like depending how much you train, once a week. I kind of challenge myself, either short bouts or a bit longer reps, 5 to 10 minutes, whatever. It's really not that complicated. The more I learn about training after like 12, 13, 14 years of this, obsessing about it, the more I learn about it, the more I sometimes know how simple it is. If you just do the basics right, you're literally 90% there. If you mix up intensities, if you do a bit specific stuff in specific season, sure, okay, that's 6 weeks out. But the rest, have variety would be, of course, The most benefits are, of course, if you know, okay, what are you lacking? But mostly the instinct, the one last thing I want to share, then I go to the next questions. The instinct with me, and also I feel what the athletes I talk about is now, the instinct is mostly right, this gut feeling. So let's say, I ask you right now, let's say you don't know, should I do VO2 max reps on the track, let's say running, should I do 200 or 400 meter running tracks, or maybe 800, but like full gas more or less, 9 out of 10 effort, or should I do threshold reps, 5 minutes, or 2K reps, something like that. And instead of thinking, which one should I do? Like ask yourself instinct-wise, which one do you think do you suck in more? So like for example, would it be harder for you to run those 200s, 400s? Or would you say, oh my God, 2K reps at 80% effort. Oh, that's going to be so hard for me. There you have your answer. Because you want to do the things your body is not good at. That's why it's called training. So find the things you're really not good at and train that. It's that simple. It's really that simple, unfortunately. So people want to make it really complicated. Also, yeah, the more I hear to specialists talking, they also all repeat the same stuff, and they also, it's unfortunately really simple many times. But the last percent to win the World Championship, that's obviously not simple, but to get 90% there, 95%, I would say it's pretty damn simple, as long as you stay consistent. Here, another one from Luis. Like many, like maybe only swimming as it's easy on the body. I'm heavier than the average guy, 90 kilos, muscle build, no problem. Running takes the toll on the body. Do you have it in your brain that running takes a toll on your body? Or do you really think it does? Because that's two things. Because people will tell you you're too heavy and all that stuff. I'm going to hear that my whole career. As soon as the name will pop up and I reach a level of performance, everybody will start talking about my weight, that I'm 85 kilos, right? So that's just going to be a fact. And when I'm going to be melting in the heat or just not performing in the heat, they're going to say, okay, you're too heavy, that's why. And that is a big pile of BS most cases, because if you drink enough and cool enough, and if you have a good cooling system, it's going to be fine. But so just in that sense, I would say take a full day off. Like I said, Luis, with the recovery side there, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, or 3 weeks on and 1 week off. So 3-1, 2-1. And running wise, just build it progressively, don't build it too quick. Weight wise, you're a muscly guy, meaning maybe you were in a gym before, your tendons and structures are strong, right? It's more when you're a 90 kilo guy and you grew up swimming 15 years, then you're more the one that's probably in trouble. But if you played football or rugby or you did gym for years, your body is pretty damn robust. So don't be too scared with this running side, just let yourself be guided by the body feels. One example, I forgot the name, he weighed 88 kilos. That's the only athlete I know that was heavy. It was an Australian guy. He was in the 80s or 90s, I think even 80s. Australian guy, I forgot the name. Maybe some of you guys know. Brad Sutton talked about him in some interview. It was an Australian guy, and he was an Olympic distance guy, a good swimmer. He deleted everybody on the bike because, of course, heavier guy, higher watts. And if you're then strong, you see with Magnus, it's kind of hard to keep up. And he was running also really, really well, although he was heavy. So, whatever your body is, learn to appreciate your body. Yes, thanks, Saiki. Gonna be nice. America. Connor asked, hey Matti, recently I've been experiencing some calf cramps closer to the end of my swim sessions. My typical sessions is 3 to 4K. Is it common for swimmers? I'm taking 90 grams carbs in the pool. Yes, actually pretty common. I had it a lot. I had quite a bit of thought processes going into cramps in the swimming, why that is, and I'm going to share them all with you now. So first of all, you talked about the carbs and cramps. That's mostly not so related. But I thought first, and you probably as well, that, okay, great, cramp. Common people think it's dehydration. So less carbs. Carbs are not going to be so much the issue. It's more the liquid intake. So basically if you're dehydrated, or the sodium side or electrolyte side in general. It's those. So you would think that is the case. But you swim for 3 to 4K. You're not swimming for 10K, right? When you swim 10K sessions, 2.5 hours, 2 hours, like the elite swimmers, the long distance guys, then dehydration is a more serious thing. 1 hour swim, unless you don't drink at all, which I don't think, you're an athlete. So dehydration, I would put a bit further on the list. But Now it comes to the orthopedic side, and they have my 2 cents on that for you would be, number one is actually when you also run, when you're a runner and then go into the pool, something really funny happens. So it's not the calf, the Achilles per se, but what happens is, because when you're running, there's these small muscles, if this is my foot, right? There's these small muscles which are under the foot, they're called the flexors, they kind of grip the toes, which you obviously do all the time when you land and stabilize, they work a lot. And yeah, this is, let's say, this is my calf, this is my foot, and the flexors, they're really, really deep in the calf. And they are the ones that are cramping. So it's mostly not always the big calf muscle that's cramping. So number one is loosen the calf. If you had a hard run or even not a hard run, if you struggle with cramps, you need to self-massage that one, and that's actually pretty easy. I can show you. So this basically is, so what you do is, if this is the calf, you just take some lotion and like, it takes 5 minutes literally in the evening before the swim. Do it not the same day before, so the body can recover a bit. And you grab kind of like this, basically with the fingers like this from both sides, and then you go in, you start somewhere a bit over the Achilles, and then you go deep and stroke up, really deep in, as deep as you can, and dig those fingers in there. It's gonna hurt like hell, I promise you, because those flexors, if they have never been treated, which most people are not, that's why when they're in physio, people scream. Not scream, but it's really painful. So maybe do reps, see it like a strength set. Do like 5 times 4 reps really deep, and then a bit softer, blood flow. That is number one. Loosen the deep calf muscles, or anything you find generally calf. That's number one, not necessarily in that order, but number one, that one, and number two, again, I talked about a low back. Super common. I have it. If I got a blocked low back, like I said, I had a hamstring cramp coming, and I knew it wasn't dehydration. So if you probably have a sitting desk job, if you have a blockage in your low back, so I would say the best, quickest address, you could try physio, all those things, doctor, but like, if you want the quickest fix, go to a good chiropractor and explain him the situation, because he knows the links. He knows L5, like the lowest one, which is kind of when you swim, you extend, and you try to do your best to kick, or even if you have a pull boy, that extension, so that like movement when you're swimming like that, often irritates that structure, and then you cramp. So that's pretty common as well. So it's gonna be one of those two. I would bet 90% sure. Either from running, you get to tight flexors, and that's why you cramp, or it's your low back, maybe both, or it's your low back, and something is blocked there, and you barely have any extension, let's say. So let's say, for example, you're sitting all day, you're all day bent like that, and you can barely do any cobra, this typical yoga cobra exercise, you barely can do it. And then you're suddenly in the water and you're trying to extend for an hour straight, and especially towards the end of the swims when you cramp, sometimes you lose the muscle tension, and then really the joint just collects, and yeah, so it's one of those. Yeah, you talked here about liquid Choban Sinbala. Yeah, maybe, but I think, but he wasn't so good. And that was in the 2000s, I think. I remember this guy. He was a big cyclist, but he wasn't such a good runner, if I remember right. But Brian, but I think it's another way. It's an Australian guy. I'm pretty sure it's an Australian guy in the 80s. Forgot the name, but he was a beast. Yeah, you talked about the liquid here, Connor, but I think really pointing toes, yeah, that can be for sure. But again, if the calf is loose, loosen the calf. If that doesn't help, so do like really deep calf massage for 2-3 days in a row, and then make a reminder for yourself in training peaks that you got to do this, otherwise it will keep cramping, because if you run, those muscles are just gonna keep doing their thing. That's one, and the other one, chiropractor and loosen the low back, quickest fix. That's good. So if you do that loosening, but foam rolling and stretching, a massage gun unfortunately doesn't go to that flexor muscle group that I talked about. So you really need to dig as deep as you can against the bone and in the middle of the calf. So it's not on the outside anywhere. You only come to the flexors when you go really deep in the middle of the calf, and then you stroke up towards the knee fold. So you gotta go hard there, and it's gonna hurt. So yep. Anyways, those are my 2 cents. I think we're heading towards the end here. If you got any more questions, it's always a minute delay, but I think we're heading towards the end here. Gotta eat a bit more, and tomorrow's a big day. And yeah, so stay focused on the journey, you guys as well. I think you have probably a bit longer until you're racing, but this weekend, exciting time for the sport with Miami. The T100 series should be some nice coverage as well. And once I got a 3-minute or under threshold and a 440 or 470 watts on the bike, and I'm going to be swimming 108, 110 as a threshold, then I'll also go to the T100 series. Then I'm going to be good enough anyways. I'm not invited now, but even if I would be invited, probably wouldn't go, because why would I? Yes. What are your goals for Oceanside? My goals are really specific. I'm gonna be, it's only progressed on me basically. My goals, I aim to swim full gas the first 200 to 400 meters as hard as I can, then do my absolute best, basically all out. 1.9k, it's basically a 1.9k swim. So I want to do everything I can to get into that front pack. That is my number one goal. Not one, but for swim, that's number one goal. And then be in the front pack of the swim. Then on the bike, I'm going to be riding 330 watts. The hills, I'm going to be pushing to threshold, 360 to 400 watts, somewhere in there. That's what I'm going to do. And then wherever I end up, I don't know. And I'm going to run. I hope that I can hold, it's a bit of a hilly course, under 340 minutes per K, 335. That would be very good for me. So there's a 115, 116, 117, I don't know, somewhere in that range. So those would be the goals for Oceanside. Doesn't get me a lot ranking wise, or you know that, but that's okay. Those are my goals, and those would be a success for me. And in Texas, same thing, do the best for front pack. There's going to be most likely non-wetsuit swim, which I like, and it's sweet water, so it's not salt water, so less buoyant. So if you're not swimming well, it's going to show. Going to be harder, of course, to go into the front pack there. We'll see. Gonna doing my best there again, being in the front pack, out of the water. I hope. More difficult, always difficult, of course, but I'm going to do my best. And then I'm going to be riding 300 watts on the bike. The hills a bit more, up to threshold, 360, but not over threshold. Otherwise, your run is going to go sideways. And then I'm going to do my best to hold 355 minutes per K average. But running off, it's kind of like the first 5K, you kind of find your groove, right? If, let's say, a 355 pace feels barely maintainable and you have to force it in the first 10K, yeah, guess what? You're not going to maintain it. So whatever feels like something that feels like dynamic jogging, yeah. I've done a few Ironmans, and as you see, most of the pros, I'm not going to be the one that's not patient. So I promise you, forget what I do in the first 20K and don't get too fussed about that, because I'm going to be the one. I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm going to run strong for 42 kilometers and not for 20 kilometers. So a lot of people are not patient and just go full gas, 20K. Everybody can run 10K or 15K fast, but 42 kilometers running is a long day. So yeah, those are my goals. Do my best and then recover a bit. Of course, respect the distance, recover. Straight back to training. Not straight back, but you know what I mean. Recover 2 weeks and keep easy volume, and then more training, more racing. And I'm going to do this for the next 8 years straight. That's my plan. Yeah. Any more questions? Can you explain your reason behind your long quality run? Would you also recommend similar for someone training for just a half marathon, for example? Alternating every 2 weeks? Yes, for sure. I would recommend that. That is not my invention per se. I have that from a marathon coach, because I have been doing long runs, easy long runs, like the fat burning long runs, zone 1, not zone 2, important, zone 1, really fat burning, for a long time. And the reason why you should mix it up is because for longer endurance events, one big part is the muscular side. So basically the long run with quality in there, however you want to tweak it. Again, it's not rocket science. Either you do progressive, so second half is quicker, or you build some, in the later second half, you build some kind of Ironman efforts in, or up to threshold even. Whatever stimulates you on a muscular perspective, it makes you strong, faster than race pace, that's important. Those things, they're going to help you. So that's something I wish I would have done a long time ago. When I started out, I did that, but then I went to other stuff. But highly recommend, obviously, yeah. But before you go into any kind of quality long run, you need to bank like at least 4 or 5 weeks of like good steady running volume before, you know, injury risk and all that. So that's that. Good. I hope you guys are well. I'm going to be checking out some more food, and I see you in the next stream and next videos. Bye bye.